Welcome to Edu Talk Collaborative Conversations, the show where passionate educators converge to talk about all things teaching. In every episode of Edu Talk, we delve into an insightful educational research study and hear from a dynamic panel of educators to discuss the study and then translate those findings into tangible tools for our everyday endeavors in education. Join us as we transform education together, one conversation at a time. Hello, fellow educators. Welcome to Edu Talk Collaborative Conversations, the show where passionate educators converge to talk about all things teaching. I'm your host, Jeni Langfeldt. This episode brings an exciting study to the forefront and along with it, an esteemed panel of educators that I can't wait for you to meet. I'm so thankful for all of you who are tuning in today. You are an important part of this conversation. Let's dive right in to today's study. Have you ever caught yourself sketching figures during a professional development session? Well, in this episode of Edu Talk, we're going to delve into a study that is poised to uncover whether the act of drawing can significantly deepen students' comprehension. Reading well is more than just recognizing words. It's about understanding and connecting ideas in what we read with what we already know. The better we are at knowing how well we understand what we're reading, also known as monitoring our own comprehension, the better we understand what we read. So it's really important for us to find ways to help students improve the accuracy of their own comprehension monitoring. What do you think? Do you think drawing has the potential to aid comprehension? Well, we're going to investigate that in today's episode. Let's get started. We're diving into some fascinating findings from the study titled Drawing to Improve Metacognition Accuracy. This is the published result of the work of 6 researchers, which was showcased in the scholarly journal Learning and Instruction in 2021. It's a fairly recent study. Now, historically, drawing has been recognized as a critical aspect of learning, especially in early childhood. It helps learners understand and remember information. Evidence suggests that drawing, when used correctly, can significantly enhance learning. However, it's also been noted that its effectiveness really depends on specific conditions. Previous studies on how drawing affects comprehension, the impact of different types of drawing instructions has not been explored until this study. So this study fills that gap by examining how varied drawing instructions influence students' ability to monitor and understand what they read. The primary objective of this research was to investigate how the act of sketching diagrams impacts 5th graders' capacity to precisely comprehend and self-assess their understanding of scientific texts. This ability is referred to as meta-comprehension accuracy. This study involved 122 5th graders from Idaho. The students were split evenly by gender and nearly evenly by ethnicity. There were both white and Hispanic students. The students were grouped by reading ability and then assigned to one of 3 groups to receive specific drawing instructions connected to scientific texts. One group was taught to create organizational sketches, focusing on connecting ideas. The other group learned to make representational sketches, capturing as many text elements as possible. Each teaching session lasted about 20 minutes, and 5 science texts of similar length and difficulty were used that had not been previously read by students. Then, the researchers conducted a series of rigorous evaluations post-instruction. The assessments were designed to not only measure the variations in comprehension among the different groups, but also to delve into the intricacies of the sketches produced by the students. The goal was to then find the correlation between the quality of the drawings, such as detail and accuracy and relevance, and the students' ability to accurately assess their comprehension of the scientific texts. The research findings from this study reveal that students who created organizational sketches showed a higher level of metacomprehension accuracy and performed better on comprehension tests compared to both the students who drew representational sketches and those who did not sketch at all. The findings of this study indicate that drawing can be a powerful tool to help students grasp and link concepts when reading scientific texts, potentially enhancing their understanding of how well they comprehend the material. Now, not all drawing styles are equally effective. Organized drawings that sketch out the big picture and how the concepts relate to each other can improve comprehension. We refer to these as those organizational sketches because they encourage the formation of a mental model, helping students see beyond the facts and link ideas together. On the other hand, simple drawings that just replicate the text information, which we call representational sketches, are less effective for deep understanding, and they fail to significantly boost students' comprehension accuracy. To sum up, this research builds on the existing evidence that structured drawing enhances learning and reveals that besides increasing understanding, drawing structured diagrams helped fifth graders more accurately monitor their comprehension. This is a big deal because better awareness of your comprehension is connected to greater learning outcomes, suggesting that drawing could further boost students' understanding of complex material. Up next, we're going to connect with our panel of experienced educators as we discuss the study and explore the practical impact of its findings right here in a thought-provoking conversation. Stay with us. At Edu Talk Collaborative Conversations, we want to shine a light on the heroes of education. There's a lot of them. Do you know an educator who's making a positive impact in their school, community, or district? You can recognize them by nominating them for our monthly Educator Spotlight. Each month, we will feature one inspirational educator who's altering the academic landscape for the better. In other words, they're making a difference. Help us celebrate their exceptional contributions to learning and leadership by nominating them today.
Please note that the opinions and views expressed by the host and panelists on this show are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of their employers or affiliated organizations.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Edu Talk Collaborative Conversations. This is the platform for a diverse educational dialogue every week, and I am so excited for you to meet the panelists on today's episode. We are going to talk about the findings of the study that we just looked at a few moments ago, but before we do that, I want you to meet both of them. And I hope this is an opportunity for you to expand your network just a little bit. I am so excited to introduce to you Anthony and Jerry. Jerry, you start first.
Hi, I'm Jerry Samuels. I'm currently a Dean of Students at a private intervention school in Central Omaha, and loving what I do. I've been in education for about 8 years. Prior to that, I have a background in finance. So it's been a great transition. I never regretted waking up on a Monday.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What about you?
Hi, I'm Anthony Williams. I'm the current principal of the Omaha Street School, a private faith-based alternative high school in the inner city here in Omaha. I've been in education for the last 15 to 16 years. I'm an industrial management systems engineer by education in the first career, and I have never looked back after making the transition.
I didn't know that about you. That's amazing. So our paths have crossed in different ways. Jerry and I used to work together at Phoenix Academy, and Anthony and I studied together for several years at UNO. Okay, so let's dive into this study's topic. And I think Anthony, you're first. Before we dive in though, and I ask a question, I just want to stress that as educators, when we are reading educational research, we really want to be critical consumers. So we're going to be thinking about what we're reading, and that's going to cause us to ask some questions. We don't have to know everything, but we should be intrigued a little bit. So that brings me to my first question. Anthony, when you were reading this article, what questions came to your mind?
The first question that came to mind was, I wondered if the study could be replicated using high school students.
I wondered that too, because this one, now I got to remember, because I just did 2 articles in my mind. This was the 5th graders. Yes, 5th graders, science, 122 kiddos in Idaho.
Yes.
And you work in a high school setting, so your students are grades, is it 9 to 12?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions come to your mind?
Well, that was a general question, but more specifically, I wanted to know if the study could be replicated for struggling high school age youth.
I mean, the findings of this study definitely show some promise as far as helping students to understand complex materials. Would you be interested in facilitating your own research in your building with your youth?
I would, yes.
I love that. All right, up next, Jerry. Okay, so with your experience in education, do you believe that trying to improve metacognition accuracy complements or challenges traditional teaching methods?
I think it's gonna challenge it a little bit. I mean, I think it could do a little bit of both, depending on how you come across this strategy. So the thing that popped into my head when I read through this study was, it seemed like there is a big assumption that there is going to be a sufficient amount of working memory and just neurotypical processes that go along with having to do this meta-comprehensive activity.
Yeah.
And that is not going to always be the case with students, especially in a school that I help oversee. We have a lot of kiddos that have learning differences, and even though they might show the capabilities to be able to master certain concepts, that's not always going to pan out successfully every time that a certain material is put in front of them.
Right.
So I think that there's probably some material gains or some material advantages by using that strategy, but you're also making a huge assumption on background knowledge. I think you're making a huge assumption on them being able to have that ability of abstraction and synthesis, kind of that higher order thinking that we see in the Bloom's taxonomy that we love to beat to death in education, but it's useful. That's why we refer to it. Those are the things that kind of came to mind. I was like, I would love to be able to try this on our population of students to see what kind of gains will be made and if they're consistent and predictable.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I could see you implementing, scaffolding the implementation of it, doing it at a small scale.
The first thing that came to my mind was scaffolding. In this instance, I'm like, well, we're definitely have to walk through and almost just kind of dialogue what metacognition feels like, and what is that process going to visualize, and how they're going to visualize that process in their own heads, right? Yeah. They have to actually understand the concept to know, okay, well, this is where I should be trying to steer my thinking, and this is how I should be trying to steer my thinking.
Yeah, they really need some explicit direction around that. But this is the perfect example of being a critical consumer of research. We read this amazing study. It had some pretty good findings, but now you as a professional have to go, okay, well, with the population of students that I serve, how can I reap the benefits in this setting?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay. Anthony, so as principal of the Omaha Street School, how do you foresee the study's findings being maybe applied with your school's unique educational setting, considering the needs of your own students?
I think that I don't know if I would do it in science first if we did replicate it.
I love this. Interesting. Okay.
But I'm not sure which subject matter that we would tackle first using this research method. But my population of students typically struggle hugely in math and science.
Okay.
And they come in with, huge deficits in reading comprehension. They're assessing at the elementary level, although we know that they are way more capable.
Absolutely.
But they assess at that level.
That's where they are.
I'm not sure which subject matter we would try to tackle first, though.
I know this isn't what we planned, Jerry, but would you have a suggestion?
Just because of the flexibility it offers in materials, I would probably say language arts.
I was thinking the
right?
same
Because you look at most curriculums and they're going to have a heavy lean towards the classics. If it doesn't seem like there's a lot of buy-in or a lot of confidence in the up-and-coming writers, the up-and-coming generations that we've seen in more modern times, right?
Yeah.
But I've really made it a personal goal to add to our collection things that are like instant classics, something that is just going to have a lot of rich value to it, and be able to delve into some difficult topics or some relevant situations, right? I can read The Hound of Baskervilles with my 8th graders, for example, but I could also say, hey, let's take a look at The Hate U Give. Like, this is a really relevant topic, something that you all will be able to relate to a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm not having to try to bridge the gap as far as all the nomenclature from hundreds of years ago versus something that was just written a few years ago and has gotten critical acclaim, for just being a great literary work. So just because I could be able to find something to use that I know would be able to, that I could pair well with my group of students, whoever they may be, I would probably start in the language arts area.
I was thinking the same thing, and I love that if you identify something that hooks them or that they can relate to, it gives them an entry point. So we're introducing this new concept of this drawing and processing or monitoring our own comprehension. But if they do it alongside of something that they relate to or is easy, then we can work on this skill gradually over time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. Jerry, I do have a question for you. Actually, I heard you talk about, or I read maybe perhaps, you have this great analogy between analog and, help me with the camera.
Analog and digital.
Okay,
Right.
so you made a connection between analog and digital cameras and the organizational and the representational sketches. Like, will you go into that?
So I made that analogy when I was thinking through this. We'll say, so let me just set the stage for analog versus digital camera.
Beautiful.
So analog camera is going to take whatever it reflects from its field of vision. And you as a photographer have to try to be able to make those tweaks and all that, but there's only so much that you can do. You expose it to the image, it's going to be imprinted on that film, and what you get is what you get.
Yeah.
And versus a digital camera where it's going to be taking those inputs, assigning values to all those different inputs that it's observing, and being able to know, is this what I should be seeing? Is this the good mixture? No, I can already tell by all the inputs digitally I'm having too much feedback of white balance or too much shadow or shade, and it's already, and you can look on your phone and you can see that it's making those adjustments all on its own without you even touching it.
Right.
It's trying to find the optimal solution to give you the optimal feedback.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about that representational activity, versus the organizational activity, you're kind of doing the same thing. I feel like when you're asking someone to show what they know about a specific piece of text, right?
Yeah.
You're just saying, okay, if they don't have what they need to be able to make those adjustments, if they're not using that metacognition, they're opening up their aperture. They're going to say, well, this is what I thought it is, and that's what you're going to get, and there's no adjustments being made. And you're going, but there wasn't a donkey in the chapter, right? You're not, but somehow they drew a line between those two things, whatever they might have been. Versus, digital, and kind of that metacognition is constantly checking. Is that right? Is that right? Did it have a chimney on the house? Did it not? Was it winter? Should there be grass? And they're constantly having to be able to check their own thinking. And it might be a little bit more of an involved process, and but the product is going to be so much richer as a result when they can actually take the time to think about their own thinking.
Yeah, go Anthony.
I think your response perfectly correlates right back to your opening statement about the researchers making assumptions about kids' ability prior to the study. That's a wonderful analogy.
Is that analogy not mind-blowing? When I read that, I went, what? And here is why I think this show is so important. Because I love reading educational research, but I know that there are teachers out there, one, who don't have the time. And in my teaching career, I was told what best practice was, and I just took it. You tell me it's best practice, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And so part of the purpose of this show is to help give research out to people who are limited on time. But the most important part is when I read that article, I didn't come anywhere close to what you just said. And so when we sit down with other professionals who are engaged in work that we're doing, Like my whole thinking has now gone up like 3 levels, and I love that analogy. But that's what happens when educators get together and they converse.
Yeah, it was an interesting study, and you know, I like the fact that they're trying to tie imagery to you know, written expression and try to integrate that, because it just, you know, it lists so many other faculties in your brain and try to get, you know, so many other things firing. But you know, I wouldn't want someone to jump into that, see that this is successful, or that it shows, you know, some sort of statistically significant gains in comprehension ability, and then go, well, why didn't it work for me? I did exactly what they did. You know, we just have to have that flexibility to say, this is one way, but it's not the way. You know, it's not the Mandalorian, right? It's not.
That's right.
I caught the reference.
Yeah, Star Wars fans, see if you get that. See if you get
reference.
that.
So that's not for me. However, so normally I wouldn't chime in here, but in my current role as director of TAP and ACT, which is Master Certification Programs for Teachers, I work with individuals who got a bachelor's degree in some other field besides education, actually like the both of you, which I did not know was the deal. I knew Jerry, but I didn't know that about you, Anthony. And some of them jump in with 2 feet and they're teaching full-time in a classroom without having the benefit of a 4-year history. Like we've given you some tools to go in. They're just in there doing their thing. And I had this revelation this year that I really need to help create for them a mental model of what good teaching is. So when I was reading this article, I was thinking, gosh, how can I help them make all of these connections that we're trying to make? And so totally different context than you, but we can at least still critically think about the study and how it might apply to us. Okay, so we're not done yet, but for one thing I want to do just for fun is ask just a fun question. So if, I forget how I phrase it, what superhero do you think would make the best teacher?
Are you asking me or are you asking
both of you? You go when you got an answer. Go for it.
I know who it shouldn't be.
Who shouldn't it be?
I would actually surprisingly say Tony Stark. I mean, for as gifted as he is, I think he would not make a great teacher.
He would be a terrible teacher.
Yeah.
So speak more to that before I put words in your mouth. So tell me more why.
Well, you know, it's kind of like anytime I have any kid that's really high achieving, right? And they can understand it. They just have this almost like instinctive knowledge about something.
Yep.
And they feel like they get it. And then the moment I say, hey, great, guess what? I'm going to use you as a knowledge leader. So I'm helping these kiddos over here. You know how to walk through these 2-step equations. You help them and help explain the thinking. And then you get the blue screen of death. For those that are old enough to remember the Windows blue screen of death. Blue screen of death.
It's got all the references.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to explain it. And you know, we can say, hey, you understand something, but if you can't explain it, how well do you really understand it? You have some depth of knowledge in there, but you got to be able to explain it.
Great answer. That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, Anthony.
I think Professor X.
Okay.
Just because he can read minds, he can help.
Oh.
He can help the population of students in any given class settle down and focus in on the learning of the day.
That's so
You can explain it to them in their brain.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Exactly.
Think how amazing we would be at our jobs if we could read our students' minds.
Part of the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
You said what?
Yeah, no, not all the time.
True.
Yeah.
So I would say Batman. 1, because he's my favorite. But 2, because he has all these tools on his tool belt. And don't teachers need a ton of tools? You don't know what you're going to need that day, but you better have something that you can grab onto and use in the moment. Okay.
Can I respond to that?
Uh-oh.
Speaking of tool, it's not an O. Speaking of tool belts
superhero.
and going back to your response prior to asking us the superhero question, some things I think not only professionals who don't have the 4-year knowledge of learning how to become an educator, but also current folks who are doing those programs. One thing I've seen as a building leader that I wish our programs spent more time focusing on is classroom management and relationship building. Because those are 2 of your biggest tools in your tool belt that you need. You got to know how to manage a classroom because not everything is utopian. You know, if you tell a kid to be quiet, sometimes you may get something hurled back at you.
Yeah.
And then also how positive relationships are developed with kids, because we have such immense power to push kids to left or right. in our day-to-day interactions.
Absolutely.
And that's a longitudinal effect. It could be. So
Yeah.
I think those are two of the larger tool belts that
Yeah.
could go tools that could go in
So
your tool
true.
belt.
And the thing is nothing about classroom management is intuitive. You would think you can just go in and manage a classroom. Nope, that's just not how it just doesn't work that way. You really need some thought around that. Okay, so we're winding down our conversation. And I want you to think about the future of education, like what's on the horizon. Better is always possible. We can always do things better. What is your hope? What do you want to see in the future of education?
Well, I know that AI has been getting a lot of attention, and I don't think that that's a bad idea to leverage AI.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, I feel like we have a generation of children now that know how to use all these ancillary tools and applications, but when it comes to actually content creation, when it comes to using the things, or they call them productivity tools, things like that, they don't know how to leverage those things effectively.
Yeah.
And I think if they were able to use some of those tools, I don't want to say like the tools that matter, but kind of the non-entertainment type stuff, the things that you're going to see in a workplace or a place of business, I think that if they have the right thinking around problem solving, then AI could really just exponentially catapult their capabilities.
Absolutely.
Because then when they're asking AI to say, generate me this report for this,
Yep.
they can have enough knowledge to be critical and say, okay, well, I need to weed out this, I need to weed out because I don't know, something wrong with their algorithm going on in the bot, but
yeah.
it's not
That ain't
working.
working.
Right.
Exactly.
Instead of just wholeheartedly trusting. I see too much
Yes.
reliance on technology.
Yes.
And technology's not a bad thing. It's a great
Nope.
tool. I think it's a huge blessing for the
Absolutely.
world to be able to have internet at their fingertips and all that stuff. But we have to know how to steward it. And the only way you know how to steward it is if you understand it.
Yeah. And if you can think on your own before engaging with it.
Right.
Yes. That's excellent. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd love to see more AI, being used in schools. Sure.
I love it. Anthony, what do you think? What do you hope?
I wish that the honor and respect of the profession would make its way back.
Me too.
Because, folks get into this line of work wanting to make a difference.
Yep.
And then in the first 1 to 5 years, find themselves out of the profession
Yep.
because they've been beat down
Yes.
by kids,
Yep.
coworkers,
Yep.
parents,
Parents.
the discipline. So I really wish the honor and respect
Me too.
would come back to the profession because, as an educator, kids are spending a third of their lives with you, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And you're responsible for helping not only educating young people, but helping shape their life outlook because they're
Absolutely.
spending so much time with teachers. So,
Yeah.
but we've seen a degradation, if you will, of the profession in that regard.
We have. If you ask kids, do you want to be a teacher? The answer's like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's so sad because our profession is amazing. Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, we had a little blip in COVID. Everybody was saying we should be paid $1 billion a
We
year.
did.
I said this is going to taper off pretty soon.
And it
when everything just when everybody can reacclimate.
families got a taste.
No, you
Oh,
guys
they
get $12
did.
an hour.
They had to feel the weight of what educators do on a daily
Yeah.
basis. And teachers were honored there for a few moments, and then we went the other way. Yep. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I respect you both so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the field of education. You are welcome here anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so thanks for joining us today. This has been the second episode of Edu Talk Collaborative Conversations. I can't wait to see you next time, and you can join in on the conversation with us.